I think everyone would agree that we're living in a world of excesses. The word surfeiting comes to mind. Be not overcharged with surfeiting. In other words, excess. The cares of this life and the deceitfulness of riches. So a lot of the cares of this life stem out of a materialistic society, the deceitfulness of riches, all these things to the nations of the world seek after. Some, of course, make the grade and they achieve the excesses of wealth and power and all this, while others are caught up in all of this and they're overcharged with the cares of this life as a result of the deceitfulness of riches. So you have a very excessive society in all directions, distress amongst nations with perplexity, very perplexing for people and very distressing. And it's like a maze that gets worse and worse as the rich and powerful get more and more richer and the poor become more and more poorer. So you have these excesses, excessive worry, excessive statistics, etc. Everyone caught up in all of this. So very much a day and age of excesses in all direction. And as a result of this, it could, and it is to be argued, that many are struggling families breaking up as a result of the struggles of life. Parents trying to raise their children amidst poverty and hardship and fear and worry over the future, wondering how they're going to survive, how they're going to feed and clothe and house their children, how they're even going to get a house, let alone feed, house and clothe their children, how their children are going to get houses. All of this is the cares of this life. And the deceitfulness of riches playing a big part in all of this, a very materialistic society. And to make the grade, you have to be materially well off and have all of the symbols of affluence. Otherwise, you're just not taken seriously. So all of this resulting in grave pressures on families, survival, and others, their survival is all about staying on top. So two excesses there, very much, again, an excessive, the word surfeiting. Overcharged means over worried, heart attacks are going up, statistics are going up regarding mental health, so overcharged with surfeiting, excess, due to excess, the cares of this life. And the deceitfulness of riches, all playing a part of this, the deceitfulness of riches, bringing people further and further into the cares of this life and excessive addictions even, due to multinational corporations dishing out all of their addictive lifestyles and things we feel we must have. A lot of people overcharged with surfeiting, and so they eat to drown all their sorrows in food. Others drown all their sorrows in excesses of wine, or excesses of buying endless clothes or keeping up with all of these endless norms. So very much a rat race. And everyone caught up in this. And as a result, the bottom line in all this is the family of mankind, breaking down. Families under great strain, stress, worry, woe. And all of this resulting in split-ups between man and his wife, breakups between children and their fathers. And so you have very much a divided society as a result of all of this. What is the solution? Many people come up with all kinds of solutions. Well, dare I say, the solution is spiritual. Now that actually would make people think, oh, let's run a mile right there. Here he is, he maybe, I mean, just maybe, I had you going there, he understands, he agrees. Believe me, I do understand. I have children of my own, and I understand the struggles and the care, the worry, and the woe that comes with it. And you wonder how you're going to hold yourself together let alone hold the children together. This is where a lot of the crossfire comes with parents who are under great strain, great stress, and sometimes they let it all out, let it all rip, and they and the children suffer as a result of this. I mean, you're supposed to bring up the children in the care, in the nurture of the Lord, teaching them to love and to love each other, to love everybody. How can you teach them to love everybody in a very hateful, unkind world out there? Teaching them to do unto others as you would have others do unto you. So brought up in the nurture, in other words, brought up in a more spiritual, well-balanced, moral climate in the house, teaching your children to love God, ideally, and to love others. In other words, to do unto others as you would others do unto you. And then they go out in the world and find others don't do this. And so there's the moral climate out there is very pressured, and so the children feel they can't do this. And so honour thy father and thy mother goes out the window because mum and dad appear to be talking absolute, in their mind, in their words, crap. Because they go out and they love others, they do unto others, and they with others do unto you as others do unto you. And yet they don't do unto you what you do to them. So it doesn't quite follow that appears to be working. So you have a breakdown there in spiritual morals, because the climate out there is that no one adheres and does all of these things, no matter what your religion is or what your philosophy is. Everyone usually agrees, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And that's taking the religious and the spiritual element out of it. Most people agree on that, but most people don't do this. And so you have a breakdown there. So the spiritual solution to all of this is quite radical, you might say. And yet quite simple. And with that entails sacrifice. Love in itself is a great sacrifice. We have to put ourselves on the altar of sacrifice for each other. And that means giving up on our selfishness. Often we don't feel like doing the right thing. So how do we find it in ourselves to do the right thing, seeing as we don't feel like it? Sometimes we don't just have the love. We don't find we love everybody. We're told, say, to love everybody, but we find we can't love everybody because they're not very nice and easy to love. So how do you love those that are unkind? If you've got unkind parents, it's hard to honour thy father in the Lord. The problem is if they're not bringing you up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, and they've brought you up in, say, a more materialistic, competitive household, and you're left starving spiritually. Well, children that are brought up in a spiritually impoverished household and are taught to be materialistic from birth might find they're starving, absolutely hungering and thirsting after the spiritual. But a lot of people don't even see the spiritual as a solution. How could the spiritual be a solution to all of this bankruptcy in society, in that families are breaking down, children are rising up against their parents, and the parents are mopping the floor up with their children, let's be honest. And many parents are trying to do the right thing and they make mistakes along the way, and children can't live with these. And so they get into the blame game, and everything gets blown out of proportion, and the parents become labelled. Either the parent is classified as abusive, classified as toxic, classified as narcissistic, or my parent is manipulative and controlling. All of these labels have a way of totally obliterating a family and a relationship, because as soon as people hear those labels, it automatically points to a complete breakdown, and the advice would follow there to get away from a abusive parent, get away from a toxic parent, Get away from a narcissistic parent. Get away from a controlling parent. So all of these labels can be dangerous. It doesn't always follow that they are narcissistic. Well, some are, yes, let's face it. It doesn't follow that some are controlling. I mean, a parent clearly has to control the household, pay the bills and keep order. But does that follow he deserves the word controlling? Parents have to be the one in charge. Does it follow that he's narcissistic? Parents are good at, or should be good at, organising things and keeping everything in order, which is quite a big order, quite a wide order to order, in order to hold your job together, hold yourself together, hold all of the children together, hold each other, the wife and the husband holding each other together. Hold it together when they go to school and they're teaching them all these unusual things these days, and there's squabbles and arguments there, and the teachers don't always get it right. So multitasking, multi-organising, and therefore trying to get things right all round. And the parents called manipulating, gaslighting, controlling, abusive. All of these labels, and once someone puts this label on you, it usually follows, get away from that person. He's abusive, get away from him. He's narcissistic, get away from him. He's controlling, manipulative, get away from him. Now, does it follow that the label fits? Well, sometimes it does. Some parents are manipulative. Some parents are controlling. Some parents are narcissistic, all of these. But where do you draw the line with labelling a parent as such when it could be argued the other way around? Yes, they have to be controlling. They have to keep themselves under control and keep the whole family under control, because there's often arguments in the family, for instance. There's often crises in the family. A parent can these days so easily lose his job. And somehow or other, he has to hold it all together. Sometimes a person can lose their job and you're right on the breadline. You have to keep order in the household when there's no money and you're trying to struggle for every penny. So this is the dilemma all around, because children are often subjected to the wrath of the parent. There's that side of it, whatever the world's giving the parent. Wow, the parent can suddenly take it out on the weakest. Let the weakest in the family have all of my care, worries and woe, and take it out on him, when maybe they should be taking it to the government and protesting against them, or protesting against their job or the world out there. Well, the problem all round really is spiritual. And it says, I mean, there are verses written down, can two walk together except they be agreed? Now, that's the problem, you see, except they be agreed. The parents might advise one way, and again, the danger here is, again, brought up in a religious household, there's various religions, and who's to say which one is right? When the children go out there and they think, Dad's teaching me all of this religious crap, they say these days. And then the logic out there will be, get away from that nutcase. There's a lot of nutty religions around these days. But the bottom line in all of this should be, do unto others as you would others do unto you. Now, at least get that right. You might not understand the spiritual element to all of this, that a child is best brought up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. So in other words, when a parent admonishes a child, it should be done even-handedly and through the example of Jesus. The example of Jesus is very, very forgiving. Jesus said, I am meek and lowly in heart. Come unto me, all ye that labour and are heavy laden, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. In other words, have you ever seen a yoke? You want to carry 2 buckets, say, in the old days, to wherever you were carrying them, to the market, to the end of the garden, whatever. They'd have a yoke, a piece of wood simply that you put across your shoulder, and a bucket on each, evenly placed on either side of that yoke. And that made it easier to carry the burden. So Jesus being the more even-handed there in the example of love, forgiveness, compassion, we should be following the example of Jesus. Love, forgiveness, compassion, long-suffering, always ready to forgive, and not a hypocrite, living out his same advice. Jesus teaching us to love God and love others. Jesus being the mediator between God and man. Jesus always pointing to the Father, always pointing to love, always pointing to God. And Jesus understanding that we are simply human and we make so many mistakes. One day Peter said to Jesus, how many times should I forgive my brother? This is in a family setting or in a social setting, or even at work or wherever, man and wife, mother and child, child and father, child and mother, whichever. This should come into every setting in life. How often should I forgive my brother, or anyone, come to that? 7 times? Peter said, well, look, 7 times should be quite good. Some of these things people do against you are quite bad, quite evil. So generally speaking, and weighing up the whole picture, it would seem quite excessive to go 7 times. Yeah, 7 times would be a good number. Is that the number, Jesus? No, Jesus said. You should forgive 70 times 7. So that's just a general picture of how many times we should forgive each other. And this is often the problem in families, that people don't stick it out. In relationships, that people don't stick it out. That people aren't forgiving. They're too quick to label someone as narcissistic, to label someone as abusive, to label someone as toxic. These words are dangerous. To label someone as controlling. Label someone as from birth they've been controlling me and telling me what to do and oppressing me and being narcissistic towards me and using me, but never really loved me. Well, there is a problem out there with that, and all of this boils down to, again, being overcharged with surfeiting, excess. The excess could be in a family that's too materialistic and competitive, and the child's brought up in a competitive spirit, in a materialistic household. And they are starved of love and affection. They're taught from birth to compete. Maybe the parents understand. Maybe they've come from a hard background and poverty, and some people have gone from rags to riches. And so they understand how it is to be poor, and they want their children to get on in the world, and so they push them to do well at school, to do well at college, and get a good job. And then life will be easier in the long run. So it doesn't follow that it's not coming from love. They're just trying to save you from what they went through themselves. They've gone through great hardship, great poverty, great sufferings. And so they're doing their best, and maybe they went overboard. Maybe they went overboard in it all, in that they know that the answer is to have a materialistic, comfortable lifestyle and things will be better for you. Maybe they remember what it was like in their house, and they grew up under poverty, and their parents were always under distress amongst nations with perplexity. So it's hard for either side to understand the other, and children don't usually understand the parent until they grow up and become parents themselves. And let's face it, children often rebel against their parents because it's cool to do so. But sometimes they go to extremes, as the parents also go to extremes. Some parents do bring children up to be proud, competitive, materialistic, and they don't get any love. Some children are brought up in a materialistic household, and there's nothing spiritual. Some parents are frightened to talk of the spirituals. They don't want their children to grow up to be classified out there as religious freaks. So they, for whatever reason, they don't address the spiritual need in each other. But the answer is indeed, at the bottom line of it all, is love. Now, many people think love's a force and all this. Other people think love is spiritual and love is God. Jesus always taught to love God and love others. Well, how can I love a God whom I've never known? So Jesus said, he that have seen me have seen the Father. He that receiveth me, receive Jesus, receiveth him that sent me. So in receiving Jesus, the absolute, true, long-suffering, loving, and 70 times 7 endlessly, in other words, forgiving Jesus. In receiving Jesus in that, we cast our yoke upon him. Come unto me, all ye that labour. You could be overwhelmed with distress. You could be overwhelmed in your job because you're being exploited, because of the deceitfulness of riches. And the cares of this life are overwhelming you. You're oppressed and crushed by an oppressive government and society. And the merchant men are exploiting you and exploiting you, and therefore bringing you into a form of slavery for every penny. All of this is very oppressive, very demoralizing, very perplexing. And so you have the cares of this life and the deceitfulness of riches weighting you down, a government and the deceitful riches, merchant men exploiting you and bringing you into a form of slavery, slaving for every penny, the bills and the worries and the woes and the torment. They're tormentors. They're forever tormenting people. Each year come April, the bills all go up. The rent all goes up. The light, the gas, the food, the whole lot all goes up. And throughout the year, the price of living frequently goes up. Frequently, there's a crisis out there in some other country, and we all have to sacrifice to save the nation or to save Europe and all this kind of thing. And then all of the money that people pay in taxes are all sent out there to Ukraine, to some other country, to save this country. Everyone's told to tighten their belts and accept less. And yet we don't trust the governments no more. We don't trust our own government. We don't trust our neighbours no more. The whole world appears to be going to hell in a teacup. Everyone's losing it around you. There's so much pressure on people. Just one little look can just turn someone and push them over the edge. So there's great crisis, there's great trouble, there's great perplexity in the land. Distress amongst nations with perplexity. All of this troubling us. And you have in the midst of this Jesus saying, come unto me, all ye that labour, labouring, all of this bringing you into all this distress, all ye that labour and are heavy laden. He understands all the troubles and woes and worries we face. Come unto me, Jesus said, all ye that labour and are heavy laden with all of this worry, care, worry and woe, and your families breaking up. So complicated they are in families now, that and who can work out all of these perplexing situations and come up with the right answer. And so this brings us into many mistakes. Sometimes we don't always draw the lines where we should. It's not just one line to draw, it's many lines. And there's so much pressure on people that they can't even have love for themselves, let alone anyone else. And so they're breaking into crisis, they're breaking into depression. And the depression rates are going up, going through the roof. And in the midst of all this, you still have to this day, Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Compassionate, loving, forgiving. He understands we're so human. He knows our frame that we are but dust. He knows we're going to make so many mistakes along the way. We can't help it. To err is human. To forgive is divine. Is one thing we remember Jesus for to this day. Very forgiving, very loving, not placing unnecessary demands upon people, and ultimately saying, come unto me, come unto Jesus, come unto me, all ye that labour, for a spiritual solution to all of these problems, to find strength that you didn't know you have, to find strength in you through Jesus by having Jesus in your heart. Come unto me, all ye that labour and are heavy laden under all of this. Trying to prop up and hold up a corrupt government You're told to support some war you didn't even want to support. So come unto me, all ye that labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. So asking Jesus into your heart will definitely help lift the load. You ask Jesus into your heart, and Jesus will come into your heart, Jesus the mediator between God and man. And then you can know a God whom you can love. And it says, we first loved him, and we first love him because he first loved us. He loved us so much, we felt his love in forgiveness. We felt his love in strength. We felt his love in presence. Come unto me, all ye that labour, and you find Jesus, the spiritual presence of Jesus, by asking Jesus into your heart. And he can give you the strength that you didn't have. He can give you the love and compassion that you didn't have. He can give you a God whom you can love because you know. How can you love a God you never knew? Jesus saying, love God and love others. The first great commandment is to love God. How can you love God that you never knew? Jesus saying, he that have seen me have seen the Father. So ask Jesus Christ into your heart and you'll see the Father. You see the Father in the words of Jesus, the love and compassion of Jesus. And you come unto Jesus and unload all of this upon Jesus. Cast thy burden upon the Lord and he shall sustain thee. So simply we acknowledge we're not perfect. We do so many things wrong. The faults are on all sides. They're often on the parents' side, do things wrong in the midst of all of this. On the children's side, they do so many things wrong in the midst of all of this. The government, the rich and powerful, whoever they are, the merchantmen out there, the faults are on all sides. And it's often very excessive. And us caught up in all of this and finding we have no strength to deal with all of this. But the solution is spiritual, to ask Jesus into our hearts. Then we can love our families better. We can love our wives better. We can love our husbands better. We can love our children better. The children can then love the parent more because they feel love, as opposed to competition and materialism and all of the pressures of life that are often unloaded onto them. So come unto me, Jesus said, all ye that labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. He that have seen me have seen the Father. We love him because he first loved us. So if you feel and sense the love of Jesus in any of the words here, in spite of the human presence here of a person who's merely human, in spite of this, Jesus can come through in these words. And God willing, Jesus can come through and you'll sense a spiritual presence from Jesus, in that this is all very real and the solution is very spiritual. And you can find rest unto your souls. You can find the strength that you never thought you had. You take Jesus into your heart. Please, Jesus, come into my heart. Jesus says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup. In other words, have spiritual fellowship with him and him with me. In receiving Jesus, and then you receive a God. You actually receive the love of God, the God that you can love. God, who is the Father of spirits. You have a spirit. God is a spirit. God is a spirit. And they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So in so saying and so telling the world that we must love God in spirit and truth would be a God that we can feel spiritually. So asking Jesus into our heart brings us to the spiritual presence of God. Having Jesus in our hearts, we then have everlasting life. This is life eternal, that they might know thee, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom thou hast sent. So in other words, it eliminates the fear of death. One day all of this will be over. And we'll have another life in another world, another place, and the love of God in your heart. and the love of God amongst each other. If you ask Jesus into your heart, wife, family, the whole family, the husband and the wife, the partner, the relationship, whoever it is, it says, if we walk in the light as he is in the light, then we have fellowship one with another. If we walk in the light, in other words, if we walk in the love of Jesus, as he is in the love, then we have love for one another. So the love we need in our lives is from Jesus. So asking Jesus into our hearts will give us the love we need to love each other. So praise Jesus.